When tragedy strikes from the skies, stories of hope and resilience emerge. Here are the top 10 sole survivors of plane crashes. 10. First Lieutenant Martin Farkas, date of crash January 19, 2006, aircraft type Antonov An-24. Operator, Slovak Air Force crash site, Hece, Hungary. Passengers and crew, 43 fatalities. 42 cause of crash, pilot error. This aircraft was transporting peacekeepers from Slovakia. Near the Hungarian villages of Hece and Telkabanya, the aircraft crashed in snowy and forested terrain on Borso Hill at an elevation of 700 meters, 2,300 feet. The aircraft struck tree peaks before catching fire and falling. The wreckage and bodies were dispersed over a considerable region. The sole survivor's wife, Michaela Farkasova, claimed to have gotten a call on her cell phone from her husband informing her that their jet had crashed in a forest. He urged her to notify the fire department. Farkas was found shortly after the phone call. His life, according to rescuers, was pure luck because he was discovered in the bathroom of the plane, which sustained minimal damage. Following the collision, Farkas experienced mild brain edema and lung damage. After being placed into a coma through medical means, it was soon announced that his status was stable. Subsequent inquiries revealed that the pilot had dipped prematurely into the darkness, heading towards the lights of Košice. 9. James Polhinky, date of crash August 27, 2006. Aircraft type, Bombardier Canadair Regional Jet CRJ, CRJ-100ER operator. Comair DBA Delta connection. Crash site, Bluegrass Airport, Lexington, Kentucky. Passengers and crew on board, 50 fatalities, 49 cause of crash, pilot error. Although runway 22 at the airport was designated for this aircraft's takeoff, it ultimately took runway 26. Because runway 26 was too short for a safe takeoff, the aircraft overshot at the end of the runway before it could take off, killing 2 of the 3 crew members and all 47 passengers. James Polhinka, the flight's first officer, was the lone survivor. Polhinka sustained severe injuries, bleeding profusely, and had several shattered bones in addition to a collapsed lung. Afterward, medical professionals discovered that Polhinka had sustained brain damage and was unable to recall the crash or the moments before it. Although Polhinka was the pilot when it crashed, Jeffrey Clay, the flight's captain, taxied the aircraft onto the incorrect runway. 8. Foyer Kenneth Roberts, date of crash, June 14, 1943. Aircraft type, B-17C Flying Fortress. Crash site, Bakers Creek near Mackay. QLD Australia. Passengers and crew, 41. Fatalities, 40. Cause of crash, unknown. The U.S. Army and Australian civil authorities kept this incident quiet for many years due to concerns about troop security and morale. 41 U.S. service members were returning after a 10-day leave of absence on the plane. The plane leveled off at about 300 feet after taking off into ground fog. Within minutes, the aircraft caught fire in midair, and when it crashed into the trees, one of its wings broke off, creating a large hole in the fuselage through which the majority of the occupants were ejected into the surrounding shrubbery before to the fatal impact. Foyer Kenneth Roberts was the lone survivor. Roberts had life-saving brain surgery, but his speech was lost for many years following the procedure. He also had head injuries that were not identified at the time of the collision. Roberts has no memory of the collision itself. Foyer Kenneth Roberts passed away in February of 2004. The fact that this crash continues to rank as the worst aviation accident in Australian history is another amazing fact. 7. Nestor Mata, date of crash, March 17, 1957. Aircraft type, C-47 Skytrain operator, Philippine Air Force crash. Site, 22 miles NW of Cebu City, Philippines. Passengers and crew, 26 fatalities, 25 cause of crash, metal fatigue. Ramon Magsaysay, the 7th president of the Philippines, and numerous other senior military officers perished in this incident. The only person who survived the tragedy was Nestor Mata, a reporter for the Philippine Herald. Witnesses on the ground noticed that as the aircraft approached the Balamban mountain ranges, it had not acquired enough height after taking off from Lahug Airport for Nichols Field. When the collision happened, Mata was seated in the second seat, next to the president's compartment. He recalls that there was a brief dazzling flash before he passed out. Upon regaining consciousness, He discovered himself surrounded by shrubs and trees on the edge of a precipitous precipice. He was yelling, "Mr. President, Mr. President," while in excruciating pain. Upon discovering him, a group of farmers had to go back to the village to retrieve a hammock, which they then loaded and dragged through difficult terrain for 18 hours. Mata's second and third degree burns caused him to experience acute shock, which was treated as soon as he arrived at the Southern Island Hospital in Cebu. In the hospital, Mata did not pass out and was able to transcribe a press release to his newspaper for a nurse. "President Magsaysay is dead," the statement opened. The white cross in the above photo serves as a marker for the precise location of the collision. 06, Erica Delgado. Date of crash, Jan 13, 1995. Aircraft type, DC-9 operator, Intercontinental Airlines. Crash site, Maria La Baja, 500 miles north, west of Bogota. Passengers and crew, 52 fatalities, 51. Cause of crash, unknown. The pilot of this aircraft presumably attempted an emergency landing close to a swamp when it crashed into a grassy field, exploded, and then fell into a lagoon. A farmer reported hearing screams for assistance and discovering 9-year-old Erica Delgado on a seaweed mound, with her fall shattered. The lone survivor was her. She was on her way from Bogota to Cartagena, a Caribbean holiday city, with her parents and a younger brother. She told the rescuers that as the plane broke apart and caught fire, her mother had tossed her out. She had a broken arm when she was brought to the hospital in shock. Later on, Erica remembers that someone came up to her, disregarded her screams for assistance, tore a gold necklace off her neck, and fled. According to witnesses, scavengers also stole from other passengers' corpses. Erica made a request for the necklace's return, claiming it to be her father's lone keepsake. 5. George Lamson, Jr. Date of crash, January 21, 1985. Aircraft type, Lockheed Electra, 188. Crash site, Reno, Nevada, USA. Passengers, and crew, 71. Fatalities, 70. Cause of crash, pilot, ground crew error. George Lamson, 17, had sat down next to his father in the front row of the aircraft's cabin, right behind the bulkhead, following a weekend of skiing. As the aircraft made its foolish right turn, it started to tremble, and its right wing began to sink. As soon as the aircraft touched down, Lamson brought his knees to his chest. Lamson was thrown from the aircraft and landed upright in the middle of the highway while still wearing his seatbelt after the force of the collision tore his seat away from the fuselage. As the plane burst, he unbuckled and ran toward a field at the far end of the pavement. Initially, 3 people, including George Lamson's father, survived the collision. However, they both passed away a few days later from serious burns and head injuries. Subsequently, it was established that the co-pilots and the captain's failure to maintain control over the aircraft's flight path and speeds was most likely the cause of the disaster. The unanticipated tremor that occurred soon after takeoff was caused by this. Lamson is now a father himself and was called by the media recently. He is still a very secretive person and urged the reporter not to provide any further information about his work or whereabouts. 4. Mohammed el-Fateh Osman. Date of crash, July 8, 2003. Aircraft type, Boeing 737 operator, Sudan Airways. Crash site, Port Sudan. Passengers and crew, 116. Fatalities, 115. Cause of crash, unknown. The pilot radioed the control tower about an issue with one engine approximately 10 minutes after takeoff, as they were traveling to the capital from Port Sudan on the northeastern coast. After killing that engine, the pilot informed the tower that he was heading back to the airport. After 10 minutes, the Sudanese plane crashed into a hillside during an attempt at an emergency landing, killing 116 passengers and leaving Mohammed el-Fateh Osman, 3, the only survivor among a mass grave of burnt dead. A nomad discovered the youngster hurt and sleeping on a fallen tree. One of the victims was the boy's mother. Mohammed received treatment for severe burns and lost a portion of his lower limb. After the Muslim prayer, the remains were buried in a mass grave because their condition prevented them from being transported and given to their kin. The nation attributed the crash to the United States, claiming that sanctions had prevented access to essential airplane parts. The United States refuted such an assertion, asserting that no equipment necessary for flight safety was prohibited. 3. Vesna Vulovic, date of crash, January 26, 1972. Aircraft type McDonnell Douglas DC-9. Operator, Yugoslavensky Aero Transport. Cause of crash, bombing. Crash site, Hinterhermsdorf, East Germany. Passengers and crew, 28. Fatalities, 27. Because of the general situation and Vesna Vulovic's incredible survival tale, this is almost at the top of the list. At 33,000 feet, 10,050 meters in the air, a bomb went off while Vesna was working as a flight attendant. Terrorists from the Croatian Ustaše were blamed for the terrorist attack. The jet broke into multiple pieces while in mid-air due to the explosion. The wreckage hit an icy mountainside after falling through the sky for 3 minutes. When a German man arrived at the scene of the crash, he discovered Vesna half outside the aircraft with a service cart wedged against her body and the body of another crew member on top of her. During World War II, the man served as a medic and tried his best to help her until more assistance could be sent. Vesna suffered 3 shattered vertebrae, 2 broken legs, and a fractured cranium, which momentarily incapacitated her from the waist down. After surgery, she was able to use her legs again and went on to work as a desk worker for JT. She was put on the incorrect flight after it was later determined that her itinerary had been confused with that of Vesna, another flight attendant. At 33,330 feet, Vesna continues to hold the Guinness World Record for the highest fall surviving without a parachute. Her reputation as a national hero spans the entire former Yugoslavia. 2. Cecilia Sikin, date of crash, August 16, 1987. Aircraft type, McDonnell Douglas MD-82. Operator, Northwest Airlines. Crash site, Romulus, Michigan, Western Detroit. Passengers and crew. Onboard, 155. Fatalities. Onboard, 154. 2 on the ground were also killed. Cause of crash, pilot error. Following takeoff from Metro Airport, while the aircraft was still in the process of beginning its ascent, it rolled to the left and right by approximately 35 degrees. About a half mile, 800 meters, from the end of the runway, the left wing of the aircraft collided with a light post followed by other light poles, the roof of a car rental building, and finally, the ground. Cecilia Sichan was found by rescue workers sitting in her seat a few feet away from the remains of her mother. Rescue workers also located Cecilia's father and her younger brother, who is 6 years old. Many people, including the people who investigated the crash of the airliner, found it inexplicable and miraculous that she had survived the accident. The disaster was most likely caused by the flight crew's inability to use the taxi checklist to verify that the flaps and slats were extended in preparation for departure, according to the findings of the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. At this point in her life, Cecilia has tied the knot and graduated from the University of Alabama with a degree in psychology. Although she has not attended any annual memorial services or made any public statements commemorating the horrific disaster, she does communicate with some of the loved ones of those who were killed in the crash. 1. Julian Kupke. Date of crash, December 24, 1971. Aircraft type, Lockheed Electra, L-188A. Crash site, Puerto Inca, Peru. Passengers, AMP crew, 92. Fatalities, 91. Cause of crash, human error and structural failure, possibly struck by lightning. Since this is actually 2 survivor stories, I've ranked it first. These are the essential parts of the narrative to keep it in list format, although there are many more fascinating details to this tale. The Peruvian airplane had set departure for Pucallpa, Peru on Christmas Eve 1971 from Lima's Jorge Chávez International Airport. At roughly 21,000 feet, 30 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft encountered severe turbulence and a rainstorm. It is also possible that lightning struck the aircraft during this time. The airplane quickly plummeted as the pilot struggled to maintain control. The right wing and most of the left wing detached from the aircraft, despite the crew's best efforts to level the aircraft due to the fire and turbulence pressures on the wings. The plane crashed in an area of the Amazon that is hilly. Remarkably, German adolescent Juliane Kupke, 17, who was traveling with her mother, made it through the collision and remained securely fastened in her seat. Following a fruitless search for her mother, Kupke spent 9 days lost and alone in the bush, desperate for assistance. She discovered a canoe and shelter on the 9th day. Local lumbermen returned hours later and discovered her. She was taken to a hospital after the men carried her on the last 7-hour canoe trip down the river to a timber station. These days, Köpke is a prosperous biologist in Germany. In the image above, Juliane Köpke is seen relaxing close to the rebuilt wreckage while filming the documentary Wings of Hope.